Good morning and welcome to the Extra Point here on ESPN 1600. I'm your host, Roland Rainey, and as always, I'm joined with my fellow colleagues, Justice Gordon from New York and Jeremy Coleman from Indiana. Robert Parker has the day off. So we are going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and their current situation with the quarterback. Last week against the Packers and that loss, the decision was made to bench Carson Wentz and put in Hurts to see what the young man can do in his rookie season. I tell you, that was a huge decision. It's getting a lot of attention. The 3-8-1 Eagles are definitely not the team that we thought they would be this season. You look at the head coach, Doug Peterson, and what he is currently going through, some of the rumors surrounding him. About whether or not he's going to walk away after this season. It should be interesting to see how this plays itself out. You know, in 2016, when they decided to sign Peterson to a 4-year deal with a 5th-year option, they decided to pick up that 5th year. And in doing so, you would say that the Eagles made the right decision. In his second year, the record was 20-12. And then shortly after, 13-3, they come off a Super Bowl win. So from a management standpoint, picking him up on that 5th-year option sounded like a great decision. However, right now, they have a quarterback situation, and a lot of folks are pointing fingers at the head coach and staff saying that they're not managing that. Now, I think there's two sides to every story like this, right? You got Carson Wentz, who ever since his injury has not looked the same. I think we all can agree to that. He has not played the same. He has not managed and commanded the field the same way. But yet, here we are with a 3-8-1 season, and now he's going to be benched after signing a significant contract himself. So, Justice, what do you think about this Philadelphia situation? Is this more on the quarterback, or is this more on the staff, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, Roland, I think it's a little bit of both. Everyone knows Carson Wentz hasn't looked the same. He's played absolutely terrible this year. But, I look at the Philadelphia Eagles and I watch them week to week. And, everyone who watches them can see, his offensive line's not helping them at all. They've had a number of injuries on that line. I think he's the most sacked quarterback in the whole league right now. He's running for his life. And, the biggest reason he got benched is because of his turnovers. And I think he's turning the ball over because he's trying to play hero ball. He's trying to make a lot of things happen. He's on the move a lot. And I think his timing's just off. His accuracy is off. The coaching staff is not helping. They're really compacting Wentz right now into a box. They're not designing schemes for him to flourish. So I think it's the entire team right now. Doug Peterson, Wentz, the offensive line, the defense isn't really helping. I think Slay's been getting cooked a lot over these past 3 weeks by Metcalf and I think Devontae Adams. So it's just a whole team thing right now. But, as far as Wentz goes, I think it's time to bench him. A lot of people, saw Hurts. They saw what he could do that second half last week. And, it was all well and good, but I'm a prove-it guy. Teams finally get some tape on Jalen Hurts. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can have success against a defense who has some film on him next week.
Well, you covered a lot there, Justice, and everything that you covered is absolutely true. One of the things I want to discuss when you talk about that O-line, you're absolutely right. That O-line has not provided any source of protection. The O-line coach has not done a great job of putting a scheme together to help protect Carson. Also, when you look at the wide receiver separation, it's just not there. I mean, you look at their lack of separation, the large amount of drop balls. I mean, these guys are not operating as a well-oiled unit. And yes, some can say, COVID and not having a good preseason and training camp is a cause of all of this. But there are some basic fundamental things like being a wide receiver in the NFL and catching a freaking football that is paramount. And if you can't do the simplest things, then it doesn't matter if you didn't have a good training camp or not. Now, I will also say you mentioned Slade. I don't know what the defensive coordinator is thinking right now. And and I'm a huge proponent of coaching up players, especially talented players. But there is nothing that I have seen over the last 3 to 4 games from this young man that says he should be a starting defensive back in the NFL. He is getting cooked left and right. And even when they see him, for example, and you touched on it, you got him one on one with DK Metcalf, who is just a phenomenon amongst himself. And you don't roll over any help over the top to help this guy. It's just insane to think that this young man can go up against someone like DK Metcalf. You can put all the confidence you want in him in the world, but at times you got to match talent against talent. And this guy just was not talented enough to go up against a beast like DK. So I think there's a little bit of that lack of coaching and understanding situational football that's also hindering the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, I'm going to go back to what Justice kind of said about the offense. Just what the big problem is in Philadelphia right now is that the coaches aren't doing these players any favors. You know, coaches are supposed to put players in a position to succeed. They have not succeeded at all this year. Honestly, I think the defense has actually shined every now and then in Philadelphia. It's actually allowed them to stay in a lot of games that a lot of people thought would be total blowouts. Like, I mean, they stuck with the Green Bay Packers for the majority of the game last week. You know, it's like I was definitely on the betting side of thinking Green Bay was going to blow them out. Sure didn't happen until late in the game. Carson Wentz has got to fix his issues, but don't think he's going anywhere. You know, there's been reports already that if Philadelphia entertained the idea of cutting him next year, that they would have $59 million in dead money. So he's not going anywhere, folks. Jalen Hurts might have the rest of the season to show what he has, just kind of similar to the situation down in Miami where Brian Flores and the Dolphins said, well, we're going to see what this kid has for the rest of the season. I feel like Philadelphia has made a similar decision. Peterson has come out and said, though, that it's his job to make sure that Wentz comes back to be an exceptional quarterback. He's been quoted multiple times saying that early in the week. So while it might be the Jalen Hurts show here for the rest of the season, barring injury, Carson Wentz is still going to be in Philadelphia, and I expect him to be the starter next year.
Well, I tell you, Hurts definitely provided a spark, right? So he went in the game, a couple of completions, some good scrambles out of the pocket. The first touchdown definitely was on the money, so showed some signs of sparking the offense, providing some energy. And then he kind of got settled in a little bit, you know, had some incompletions, some things that should have been on the mark. But once again, once he gets comfortable with the starting unit, I think those things are going to come. The question becomes, what if he finishes out the season and he does exceptionally well? Do you roll him back to being the backup and bring Carson back in and hopefully in the offseason fix a lot of the issues? And I'm going to be honest here. I think a lot of the issues is confidence. I think he is lacking a certain confidence that he had before his injury. So when we look at this, I'm very curious, how will Philadelphia roll Wentz back into the mix if Hurts does an exceptional job to finish out the season?
Yeah, if Hurts finishes out exceptionally well, like you said, it definitely lights a fire under this offseason. They can end up trading Wentz if Hurts does pretty well, but I just don't see that happening. Hurts, he's an improv quarterback. He can do special things outside the pocket. At Oklahoma, we saw it. But, what he struggles with is in the pocket, making timing passes, anticipation passes. And, once defenses, learn to contain him and make him stay in the pocket, I think he's going to struggle a lot. I want to see him succeed, but, I don't see him outplaying Wentz in the long haul. And I think, just like Jeremy said, I don't see Wentz going anywhere.
Well, to your point, and it's a good one for the audience listening in, if you try to operate Hurts specifically from the pocket, I totally agree with you. He will hurt, and no pun intended there, but he will have issues. But the one thing he showed glimmers of against the Packers is his ability to get outside and scramble and get to the edges. That is a talent that Wentz had in his very first year, lost it after the injury, but this is something that Hurts bring to the table. So if you are a Doug Peterson, do you start to morph your playbook a little bit for the next couple of games to accommodate his capabilities to get outside the pocket and make deep throws down the field? I don't know. It's something for us definitely to look at.
Well, I think that's, of course, what he's going to have to do. I don't think you can put, Jalen Hurts into the exact same situation Carson Wentz did and said, here, we're going to give you everything Carson Wentz has done up till now. That's just not going to happen. I think we also have to remember that Jalen Hurts is a rookie quarterback in the league. At least Carson Wentz has been in the league, he was in the discussion for league MVP the year he hurt his knee, leading into that Super Bowl. Wentz is a guy who's had success in the league. Hurts hasn't even started a game in the NFL yet. He's going to get his first start this weekend. So I think it'd be silly to try to, throw him in right away and expect him to do things that to expect Hurts to do what Wentz can do. That's just not who he is, for one. They're two very different players. Like you said, he's a great athlete. Use that to your advantage. Use him a lot like the Ravens use Lamar Jackson. Shoot, Baltimore is bought in. They have complete bought into Lamar Jackson. They've designed an entire offense around him, have gotten pieces to suit his abilities the best. You're going to try to do something similar like that in these last 5 games to give Jalen Hurts every attempt for success that you possibly can. I think the one area where you're going to see a little bit of similarity, though, is where Hurts and Jackson both kind of mesh up. They are going to struggle to make plays from the pocket. I think teams have started to kind of figure out Lamar Jackson a little bit.
No, I'm with you there. And, I'm quite sure that a lot of Philadelphia Eagle fans are probably thinking, should we have gotten rid of Nick Foles? Let's think about this, right? You signed Peterson in 2016 to a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. You, in your second going into your 3rd year, you get to the Super Bowl. You win it with a backup quarterback, by the way. You go into the Super Bowl and you pulled out the cards, trick plays, so forth and so on, to where even Nick Foles got a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He was the MVP of the Super Bowl. Next year, he's there briefly, and then boom, he's out of there. And all of a sudden, now a team in Peterson's first 2 years that was 20-12 and then 13-3. Now all of a sudden, they are at the bottom of the barrel. And this year in 2020, COVID and all, they're sitting with a record of 3-8-1. You talk about falling from the top of the mountaintop. These guys have literally taken one hell of a tumble. And how do they rebuild this? It's going to be very interesting to see. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuned in here to The Extra Point on ESPN 1600. And we've been talking about the issue that's out in Philadelphia with the Eagles and with the decision to bench Wentz and utilize Hurts going up against the Saints next week. Now, let's look at this from a perspective of the Saints. That defense is nothing to joke about. That defense is legit, and they will come after Hurts. Is he going to be able to keep poise while that defense with Cam Jordan is going to come running down his throat? What's your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is gonna have a long day against the Saints. They have a top 5, top 7 defense in the league. You got Marshawn Lattimore, you got Janoris Jenkins, Trey Hendrickson, Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, Quan Alexander. They just traded for. I could go on and on about that defense. They halted Matt Ryan twice this year. They held him in check. They seem to do that every week. Matt Ryan's no slouch. They got Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and they just shut that team down last week. So, I think they're going to put the pressure on Jalen Hurts. He may get out of the pocket, make a few plays with his legs, but I think it's going to be a tough day for him, and I see the Saints winning big on Sunday.
So we've been talking about rookies here, right? So we've been kind of on this Hurts bandwagon. And hopefully the young man comes out and has a great game. We'll see. But speaking of rookies, we have seen some exceptional play from a lot of rookies in the league this year. I mean, we talked about in previous episodes, we talked about that this may be one of the best wide receiver classes coming out in any draft ever in NFL history. Now, when you look at where we are currently at in the season, and you've been able to see a lot of these rookies perform, who is the best guy out there? So we're going to break this up. This week, we're going to talk about the offense. So on the offensive side of the ball, who is the best NFL rookie of the year at this juncture in the season?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver out of Minnesota. He's had a phenomenal season so far. Through 13 weeks, he's put up 61 catches for 1,039 yards and 7 touchdowns. This kid's a future superstar. He can do it all. He's a fantastic route runner. He can catch anything you throw at him. He can play inside out. I mean, what he is able to do, and what he did stepping in after Stephon Diggs' departure, it's truly amazing. I think the Vikings went out pretty big with that trade. Some people think, the Bills may have won it, but I see future superstar all over Justin Jefferson. He's a phenomenal player, and I'm excited to see him, and I think he wins the Rookie of the Year this year.
You hit a great point. Oftentimes when you have a superstar veteran that departs an organization, and then you bring in a rookie, that's some huge shoes oftentimes to fill. I agree with you. I think Jefferson has come in and he filled those shoes immediately, and he's become that big target. Now, I will make an argument here for a young man that from the moment he touched the football field in his first start. Now, granted, this young man's first start did not come with a little bit of drama behind it, and that's Justin Herbert for the LA Chargers. Of course, with Tyron not being able to play and some of the misunderstandings on why, he wasn't able to play, what the doctor did, so forth and so on. But when Justin touched that field, he almost commanded it as a veteran. And he immediately started slinging the ball from the pocket, rolling out, sliding with his protection. The guy just had a certain aura about being out on the field. Of course, LA picked him up 6th overall. But what I want to tell the audience about this young man that a lot of folks may be overlooking right now. TDs on the season for this young man, 23, only 9 interceptions. Passing yardage, 3,224. Let me repeat that. As a rookie, 3,224 passing yards. Now, here's what's going to get you. This is a stat that I think everyone is overlooking. His current quarterback rating is 94.2%. This guy has put up numbers. They're letting him sling it. Sadly enough, they're only 3-9. In the way he's been playing, you would hope that they would have a better record. But what I like about this guy is he came into the league to showcase his talent to help an organization. And he's done it with poise. He's done it with professionalism, the way he's commanding the field. What more could you ask from a rookie quarterback? And when you start looking at some of the other quarterbacks that are out there, some who are not playing, some that are playing because people got benched, i.e. Philadelphia Eagles. And then you look at Justin, you can make the argument that this guy is standing above his peers right now. So I tell you, my vote is for Justin Herbert. I think right now the way he's playing is exceptional, and I'm going right back to that QB rating, 94.2% with 23 touchdowns on the season. I think the guy's playing phenomenal ball.
You know, it's interesting because both of those guys are first rounders. You know, we would have had a discussion when we first went into the season about who possibly could have been an offensive rookie of the year candidate. You know, you would probably look at first rounders like Justin Jefferson and say, well, if he gets an opportunity, he could do it. If Justin Herbert, you know, starts before, you know, the whole incident with Tyrod Taylor goes down, you know, he's probably a guy in consideration. Joe Burrow, you know, any of the talented receivers that have come out in this class. I'm going to go with a guy who I've talked about many times on here, who went undrafted to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And yes, I'm talking about James Robinson. What this kid has done down Jacksonville has just been absolutely special this year. He's, as of 11 games in the year, he's already rushed for 938 yards as a rookie. He's chipped in over 300 yards receiving, which is something I think a lot of people forget about, is that he's such an asset in the passing game too. James Robinson came out of absolutely nowhere and has had a memorable year as a rookie. He is Jacksonville's offense. He's been the most consistent player on Jacksonville's team, offense or defense this year. I definitely think James Robinson belongs in the conversation.
It's amazing on how he can put up those numbers and perform, and the team, you know, has a poor record. You know, it looks like they're going to be getting rid of some staff members. But, yeah, you wish nothing but the best for players like that. And I'm a huge fan of undrafted guys who played at exceptional, Jeremy. Because when I look at a local guy here in Denver, Colorado, and a Philip Lindsay, the way that young man played in his collegiate career, went undrafted, you know, not invited to a lot of these special events to showcase his talent. And the way he is running the ball for the Denver Broncos, in my opinion, there's times they need to keep him in there more. He needs to be the premier back for that team because he adds that electric spark, especially when he's running off the edges. The guy, I mean, is just exceptional. So to your point, there are a lot of those gems out there, and I think it's indicative on scouts, on general managers, on coaching staffs to make sure that they are not overlooking those hidden gems out there. And speaking of hidden gems, we may have one here next week on The Extra Point. Ladies and gentlemen, next week our special guest will be Isaiah Houston. We will have a lot to talk about with this young man. He is looking to get back on the path to being on an NFL team. He will be here on The Extra Point to share his story. And just looking at the film on this young man, the things, the videos that he's posting of his COVID-type workouts, this guy brings a lot to the table. So definitely looking forward to having him here on The Extra Point next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thanks for tuning in to The Extra Point here on ESPN 1600. We will see you next week.